Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning, everyone. We are so happy to be here. And Jim's here.
Back in Florida.
Yay.
So we hope our internet connection is better and the streaming problems will be behind us. So we appreciate your patience with that. Last week was a little choppy. So
we had quite a discussion. It's like, okay, can we send it somewhere and have them do some edit and all of that? Because I mean, all the content was there, but it was a little bit choppy. But
sure.
It all got there. So again, thank you for your patience for that. And we had a lot of fun. Over the weekend, we've had a lot of fun just kind of talking about some of the things that we wanted to discuss this week. And we've got a dealer or someone that's in this space that lives in the area and found out that they walk their dog every morning to the show.
Alicia Winchester. I think I have the last name right. So Alicia, shout out to you. We appreciate you tuning in for the show. She's actually works for a finance company here in the Clearwater area. We've not had a chance to meet in person, but we'll do that soon. And speaking of that, we're going to also have a chance to see in person again Jacob Clementowski down in Sarasota. So Jacob, if you're listening, we're coming. The only reason we haven't come now because you haven't committed to buy us lunch. So as soon as we have to go ahead on that, we'll come down.
Exactly. And those of you who know Jacob know that he has an amazing story of success, and it's something that I love hearing. So we're gonna be heading down there in the next week or two and probably record it, because we were discussing this morning, hey, do we want to get up early enough to drive down there and have it set up at 9? So it was a soft no and turned into a hard no.
Yeah. And one of the things, going live for us is one thing. Live for a dealer might be a little more uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it takes a minute to get everything set up and all of that kind of stuff.
So I see some of you chiming in to say hello, please.
I'll buy you lunch. I don't know who you are. It just says Facebook user. So we're game for, hey, some of you might have the opportunity. Just a little bit of the news of the day is that we, those of you who know us know that, last year and the year before, we kind of closed up shop in Salt Lake City and traveled around the country in our pull behind RV, and really, really wonderful time. We were, working off of hotspots all over the U.S. and, really, really enjoyed it. And then we decided that, it was Bill. Hey, Bill. Excellent. Bill, we'll take you up on that lunch.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. But so we did a lot of touring around, and we're in a brick and mortar, and so we're a little bit more settled in one spot, and we know that we're coming up to conference season and then visiting family and that kind of stuff during the summer. So sometime in the next month, we will be driving from, without the trailer, from Clearwater, Florida, up to the Salt Lake area and visiting dealers in between. And then we've got some conferences and things like that we're getting ready to do. So we'll let you guys know as we go.
That's a 35-hour drive. So we're hoping for some barbecue lunch stops along the way.
Exactly.
And kind of do the leisurely route. So anyway, we expect to kind of navigate our way through. It looks like the route is going to be Nashville and across that way. So St. Louis. And so
on the way up, swing
up. The way up. Yeah. So that's the most likely route right now. We'll keep you posted as we know. We'd love to have a chance to stop in and see folks and perhaps broadcast from, dealerships as we go. So that'll be part of the fun of it. And then also we will be speaking at TIADA. And for those of you who have not attended TIADA, I don't know where they're at with their, in terms of their attendees and how many spots they actually have. But even if you're not a Texas dealer, my understanding is that you're welcome at their conference, and it is the most well-attended conference. They do an excellent conference there. And so we would urge all dealers to attend. They, by the way, often have dealer panels, and we'll be moderating a panel.
So we've got two things on what's Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. And that dealer panel does not just Texas dealers. They have some of the best dealers from around the country. So I'm just saying it's an opportunity for those of you who want to come, and we'll be speaking on business planning. That's what they asked us to talk about, which means we really will incorporate into that conversation. And I threw it out on Facebook this morning. I think we only have about 9 respondents so far, but we'll kind of follow back on that topic, that poll, as we get more answers back.
You want to tell them what the poll is?
Sure. So I threw a poll this morning on the subject of how much time do you spend, not counting the time that you work on your business at home or, doing, long range forecasting, that sort of thing. Like, how many hours a week do you work in your business? Because Michelle and I see this is a big part of what, our work often involves, is helping dealers understand how to position themselves to, step away from the dealership more. How do you do that? And so that's part of what we try to obviously help dealers do. And in that, there's a whole lot to talk about. I've been saying that we would share, and we can maybe make time for it today, but I can share with you my own dealership experience. I owned a dealership and finance company in Oklahoma for about 7 years. There were things we did really well. There were things we did poorly. We certainly learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot through that experience, and I owned that thing on my own. And so it was certainly a good learning experience. And I worked in the business quite a lot at the beginning and was able to work less. And the dealership, by the way, was 30 minutes from my home. So I didn't work in it daily, and we had managers, in the dealership all the time. But that's something we'll talk about, because as we move toward TIADA in late July, we'll talk about that some, through this format in the morning show, about, what it is that we see that dealers struggle with in terms of how much time they have to give to their business.
Yeah. And, there are plenty of dealers out there that love being in their business.
Sure.
It's their lifeblood. They
Right.
really love the interaction with the customers and helping people with whatever problems and all of that. So, hats off to that. But there are also quite a few that we've talked to that wish they didn't have to as much. It's like, I would love to be able to take a 2-week vacation, or I would love to be able to go to TIADA.
Right.
But it's like, what's going to happen at my dealership if I do? And so, so part of that address that we're going to, or the talk that we're going to be giving at TIADA is like about business planning, is about how you can create a business plan that will allow you to have a little bit more of that flexibility.
Yeah. And the dealer can always make the choice. It's just that, I've worked throughout much of my career in launch situations where we're teaching a dealer brand new to get in the business. And we're always trying to help dealers to think ahead to, what can this thing look like in 3 years? How can we position ourselves to be able to, not have to work it, 40 plus hours a week at some point in the future, so that you can position yourself to do that. And there are ways to get there, but the dealer's got to make up their mind that's what they want to work toward.
Yeah.
And that means installing certain things in their business and positioning themselves to do that. And then, that I also managed a dealership for, it was more than 3 years that I managed a delership. I lived in Texas. Yeah. I had an apartment in Tennessee, and I was back and forth to there, but I lived in Texas, approved deals, via the cloud, and, just able to do that remotely. And so it can be done. Like, we just know you have to set yourself up. You obviously have to have good management people in place, and you have to be prepared to, kind of budget for all those things. But yeah, it can be done remotely. And that's what we try to help dealers position themselves to do.
Yeah. And the thing in Texas is intended for like the newer dealers. And so, like Jim said, most of our launch clients, that this is something that we talk to them about in the beginning, but there are plenty of dealers out there that have been in business for a decade or more, that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm ready. And so it might be something for all of you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we'll talk about will certainly apply for and be of value to any even established seasoned dealer, because we're going to talk about some things that, I just don't find a lot of people in business in general talking about what you and I talk about, and certainly not in Buy Here, Pay Here, that, there's a lot of things to consider, and not all those things are kind of within the boundaries of the black and white or the straight lines that you and I talk about. There are a lot of things to consider as you build your business plan. And we have the good fortune in Buy Here, Pay Here, as I think I expressed when we did our presentation at BHPH United, is that, we have the good fortune in our industry to be able to create darn near anything we want to create.
Yeah.
It takes access to capital sometimes, but we can create cash flow, we can create equity or both, and at various timings, but we have to kind of know what we want to build going in. And, I think the way I expressed it there was, Michelle and I can maybe help you build a car. So, and we're not the only ones, others could help you do it. It's like, you can build a car to do what you want to do, but then where do you want to go with it? Like, you have to know, what do you want the outcome to be? Where do you want to end up? And so it's about, how do you create a vision for where you want to go? How do you position yourself to do those things? And so, we just have the good fortune. Not every business is like that. You can't create the kind of equity that we can create and buy here, pay here in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So you have that opportunity. And so just have to decide what's the game
I was
plan.
really surprised when I first stepped into the space with you and watching you go through the forecasting that we do with new people that want to step into the space, coming from a different side of corporate America, that a buy here, pay here dealer in a year to 18 months can be to the point where they're covering their overhead and they're starting to they're getting cash positive on, and that's amazing. That's something that takes, 3, 5, 7 years typically for a lot of other businesses. And so it's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you have the ability to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and they talk about, I remember working with lenders years ago, and they talk about the honeymoon period and buy here, pay. When you start a new dealership, everything feels rosy, your P&Ls look fat, you're making nice profit. And then, of course, as you mature, your charge-offs start to happen. And so now it becomes a little more, thinner margins to work with. And so there are things to anticipate, but the good news is you can still create, obviously plenty of profit and equity. You can create cash flow, and we work a lot with clients thinking about positive cash flow, meaning, cash in excess of overhead and excess of replacing inventory at a certain volume. And now you've got positive cash flow plus equity, and those things don't always correlate. So, we'll be taking dealers through the financials to help them understand, what's the P&L look like, what's the balance sheet look like, and the cash flow statements at various stages. And most of us, know this, but what we see, and this is part of the idea behind my poll, is there are so many of us as dealers out there who are just so busy working in the trenches, just trying to restock the cars and get the cars turned around and reconditioned, that we don't get enough time at our desk, or hopefully it's our desk at home, to be able to really sit down and do some better cash flow planning and decide about management and have a chance to take the next step with the business, if that's in fact the goal. So I've often used the example, like I was a partner in a business when I was 24 years old. Entrepreneurship was of interest to me from a very young age. And I was lucky enough to be invited to be a partner in a pawn shop and sporting goods store when I was 24 years old. And I jumped at that because the appeal for me about business in general has always been the idea of creating something that will create income even when I'm not there. So, whether that can happen in real estate, there's all kinds of ways to create that. But we have that in buy here, pay here. You can absolutely create a business that creates income without us standing there. And I remember what stuck with me way back was, somebody said, brain surgeons make a lot of money, but typically only when they're performing surgery.
Yeah.
So, they have to be there to do that job to get paid. And a business owner, that's not necessarily true.
I think that everyone in the industry really saw the truth of that during COVID, when they had to shut down sales and there was still money just pouring.
Good point.
And a lot of people said we were so cash heavy.
Sure.
Because they weren't able to go out and buy new cars and all of that, that it's like, how fantastic is it that we have the opportunity to create a business that can do that?
Yeah. That reminds me, I'm going to throw out this analogy, and we can try to flesh it out a little more down the line. But one of the things that I started to use as sort of an analogy about buy here, pay here, and this can be true of other businesses, but that bathtub analogy that you and I talked about some time ago, if you think about a business like buy here, pay here as being, you're putting water in a bathtub, and maybe think about it, whether you're using pails or whether you're using, garden hoses, when you start a business, there's a hole. It's like the drain is open. So when you start, and let's put one hose in there running water into the bathtub, but that's your overhead. So, you start filling up the bathtub, but because the drain is open, you're spending this money on overhead, and it's going out. We was talking about with overhead, you've got that money doesn't come back. Whatever you write a check to the local utility company, that money's not coming back. Well, the money that you put into contracts, now if you put a second garden hose in there and that one is creating contracts, you're also putting money in, but that one is going to start to create income. The other one's not, but now we're going to create income from those earning assets. So now we have a chance. If we think about imagine the bathtub has a hole on the side about, 2/3 of the way up. Well, in order for that hole to start, creating money, actually creating positive cash flow and dumping money out into our, our bucket, our pitcher to drink from, then we've got to be able to get enough income. We got to get enough water in the tub to get up to that level. And in the meantime, it's draining out the bottom through that overhead. So I like the analogy.
Yeah.
It maybe helps dealers to think about, I really need to get to that place where I can start to have water come out the side and fill my drinking pitcher,
Yeah. And the funny thing, or it's been interesting to me with each different model, each different type of dealer that we've either work with or that we know, they all have a different idea of what overhead needs to look like. And we hear about people that have like such little, such a small amount that's going out for overhead.
Right.
And then others that it's like their overhead is over $100,000 a month.
Sure.
For whatever reason. And it's like, are you serious?
Right. Yeah.
And then they're wondering why they aren't able to get ahead and why they're not able to get to that place where you've got more money coming in than going out.
Right.
And so you're in a positive place and you're not continuing to dig yourself into a hole.
Sure. And we can talk about this again on Wednesday, but just checked in on the poll just now. It looks like we have 15 respondents on this morning's poll. 12 out of the 15 say they're working 40 hours plus. So it just tells you the topic is relevant. Like it is something that we want to try to solve in Buy Here, Pay Here. And look, Michelle and I certainly understand as well as anybody, it's a tough time. It's a weird time in Buy Here, Pay Here. I always talk about Buy Here, Pay Here is pretty darn steady, but COVID obviously was an anomaly. None of us really have been through that kind of a situation. So with a pandemic, and so now we're in recovery on that, but it's it definitely was a weird time. But I think we can expect that there's an opportunity for us still to get to that place where we can create in our business what it is we want to create, even with these weird car prices.
Oh yeah.
Even with hourly wages going up, there's a
Yeah.
way, there's still means to get there.
Absolutely. And it's, like we said, is every dealer is different. And so one of the things that we do with people that we work with, and we encourage everybody out there to do this, is we do something where you're going through an exercise yourself and you're also bringing your partner, not business partner, but your life partner, your spouse, your whatever, into the conversation about what do we want our life to look like as a partnership. And then you're working, what do I want my life to look like as a dealer in 3 to 5 years? What do we, and one of the reasons why we ask the dealers we work with to bring the partner into that is because they're going to have an opinion.
Right.
And those of you who are spending 50, 60 hours, I bet you if you asked your partner what they wish their life would be like with you and what they wish for you, is probably that you would work less.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And I think when the dealer really makes time to think about it, they enjoy their work. They obviously enjoy what they're doing. But, and we probably can't make a workaholic quit being a workaholic. But if you're really, if you're trying to position yourself, and sometimes you got to be in a position to decide, am I going to grow? Am I going to be tethered to this building and this one location or whatever, for the rest of my life? Or is there a path that I can create something that is going to let me, grow to a place that I can benefit from the economies of scale? Can I afford to hire a manager, and create systems that let me step away and monitor what was happening,
Yeah. And have that where, we mentioned before that you worked with that dealer that you're like, hey, I can help you grow. And he said, Jim, I sell 26 cars a month and I don't want to sell 27. So it's like, how do you get to that place where it's like, you're in just this really, really beautiful
sweet spot?
So, we encourage all of our listeners, all the dealers that we work with, just all dealers, is go through this exercise of just really spending some time. And just to give you guys an idea, one of the things that we encourage them to do is to schedule time. It's
Sure.
like, this is like a good block of time where you're not in the office, you're not at home, but you go somewhere where you feel like you can be at peace and just really think and write
Sure.
and kind of go through that exercise because um uh, sometimes we need to be able to step out of the hustle and bustle to be able to see what's right in front of us and be able to get a better idea about, all right, this is something that I want, because sometimes we just feel the stress
Right.
of the things without stepping back to see what the things are that are causing the most stress.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I get a little higher level, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's psychology, whatever stuff. Which is
Yeah,
fun.
no, it's really a big part of business. And I can tell you that, when Michelle and I met in Utah, and I'd been living out there about 5 or 6 years at that time. And I was lucky enough when I was out there to plug into a really incredible circle of people, entrepreneurs and very successful entrepreneurs. And I was able to learn, glean a
Mhm.
lot from those
Mhm.
folks that I,
Mentors.
spent. Yeah. And they, it was a network of people. I was lucky
Mhm.
enough to get plugged in there. And, just learn from some really incredible entrepreneurs. And among the things that you learn is that, many of them have multiple businesses, right? They have multiple streams of income,
Mhm.
whether it's real estate and investment and this and that. And you just see that, that's totally possible within our buy here, pay here business as well. If you can imagine growing to the place where, your dealership is just one of your streams of income, and you're able to step away and go invest in other things that,
Yeah.
that you find joy in or enjoy. Sometimes it's about money, sometimes it's about finding something
Yeah.
that you enjoy doing. And so there's other ways to make money. And so we just, we obviously like what buy here, pay here can provide for us. It can certainly provide great wealth. We just have to decide, are we okay with being tethered to it? You've heard me talk
Mhm.
about it. That's one of the things that fascinates me about restaurants. You know, I don't have
Being
any
a
interest.
restaurateur and
Yeah.
owning your own restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watch restaurants and I think, man, I would not want to own a restaurant. How would you get to the
The
place
mom
where you
and
could,
pop. Yeah.
yeah, how can and there are plenty of examples of successful, franchises out there in the
Mhm.
restaurant business, but it's like, how do you, um, how do you manage it in a way that you can step away? I mean, what happens if your cook calls in,
Yeah.
your lead cook or whatever, and they call in sick? I mean, how does that work? And so, obviously with buy here, pay here, we have the chance to be able to create a structure in our business. And we know you manage a lot of
Mhm.
cash. There's underwriting decisions that are important, but there is a path. I would
Yeah.
just say, for those of you that are working a lot of hours and can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, I would just tell you, there is a means to get there. And, so just be reassured that you
Yeah.
can absolutely, work your way to a place where you can step out of the business little by little and be able to have that thing, run on its own. And you'll always check on it. I've always told dealers throughout my career, as long as, if I'm starting a dealer from scratch,
Mhm.
I'll tell them, as long as we work together, you can expect that I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to stay involved in your underwriting. You're going to want to stay involved in your buying, the actual acquisition of inventory. Doesn't mean you have to be the one standing in the auction lane, but you need to be available to monitor that. And then there's certain functions within the software, your
Yeah.
DMS, that I say are important for the dealer only to, at least, and again, doesn't mean they're the ones sitting at the computer doing the keystrokes, but they have to stay plugged into certain things to make sure that
And
they
those
keep a
can be
lid.
done remotely.
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
can authorize them remotely, but it's about staying in the loop, knowing how we're buying, knowing
Mhm.
how we're underwriting, and being involved in those decisions. But, you could do that from the beach in Cancun. You just need to,
As long as you've got good internet.
right. But you just have to be able to monitor the
Yeah.
business and make sure that it
Yeah.
stays within the bumpers of
Yeah.
what you've created. And you still check on it physically,
Yeah.
routinely, but you don't have to be there all the time. So
No,
that's
absolutely
possible.
not. And one of the other things I kind of wanted to just touch on is when you mentioned that you had been a part of a group, actually a couple of different ones. One was called BMG, which was Big
Oh,
Mind,
it's embarrassing because it was called Brilliant Minds Group.
Brilliant
But
Minds
yeah,
Group. Just a lot of really great people. I went to
yeah.
one of the functions with Jim, and then the other one that we have ties here in Florida. It's
Oh,
the
CEO space.
CEO space.
Mhm.
That within the buy here, pay here world, there are groups as well. I mean, 20
Sure.
groups and other things like that you can kind of tap in with other people and get some. So part of where I wanted to go is it's always a really good idea to find a mentor, someone that is, you can go to one of these conferences and meet people, and hopefully you're out there just introducing yourself and getting to know people, and you find someone who's living what you want to live in a year or two, and see if it's okay if you keep in contact, and like find a mentor.
Right.
I think mentorship is really, really important
Sure.
for that. It's also some of the and this is not like a plug for Jim and Michelle and Octane, but it's a plug for business people in general. And we had a good friend of mine that was she's still in town, but we went to dinner with her night before last, and she is quite an entrepreneur. She's an artist and entrepreneur, and I met her through this group of really high level entrepreneurs, like your BMG group or whatever, that just, I mean, they were creators, and they were creative entrepreneurs. They're always creating some new business and multiple things. And we were kind of talking about the whole idea of having a coach, and that some of the things that we were talking about in terms of some of our clients, and that the importance of a coach. And I said, and most entrepreneurs have coaches. She says, Michelle, every last one of those people around that table have a coach. They're very successful because they have someone that they can talk to that can see things from a different perspective, and maybe see where pieces fit together,
Right.
where they, what things are you missing to be able to create the thing that you want. And so the most, and I think it's the same thing with the BMG group, the most successful entrepreneurs have coaches.
Right.
And so they realize that you can't know it all yourself.
Sure.
And so I just, a plug for mentorship, and then finding someone who can coach you through the next level of your business.
Yeah. And this BHPH success group that we're broadcasting in, that's helpful to a lot of people. You can't.
There's a lot of mentorship there.
Yeah, there's some. It's just that sometimes you need a deeper level than what you're going to get, on a Facebook thread. But so yeah, we absolutely, are proponents of, finding the right support, because, and especially like Michelle said, sometimes you just got to get away. And if you can have a mentor and you can kind of take your plan, you can share it with someone. I wrote an article years ago called "No Cheerleaders Allowed."
That's the important part.
Yeah, it's like sometimes what happens is people in our circle, our friends, or your father-in-law, whatever, they're going to be, rah 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 and go for it and sound like you're doing great and just kind of cheer you on. But sometimes what you really need is somebody who will, tell you that the baby is ugly and what needs to be fixed. So there's that part. You need somebody who
only a true friend.
Yeah, right. But no, you want people who will just tell you if there's another way to think about what you're doing. Then you need people who are okay with saying to you
the hard stuff.
And so I've always tried to do that for people, because I personally had a business that failed early on, and looking back on it, I think that was a failed business plan. That was a flawed business plan.
And you learned from it.
Well, and I approached at least 3 people before I stepped into it for feedback before I did it, and all I got was cheerleading.
Yeah.
And now looking back on it, I think this plan was flawed. Some of these people were professionals. I wish they had told me that they had taken the time to really look into it and see the flaws. And we all can kind of get tunnel vision on our business planning with the way we want to do things, but we have to be open to suggestions of a mentor. Why bother?
Yeah.
If you're not going to be open to what they have to share with you, and maybe you get more than one. But yeah, I think that's a big thing, is just to find the right help. And certainly, Jim and Michelle, we're a small company. If 10 of you reached out and want us to help, we'd probably be able to help 1, maybe 2, so which means at least 8 of you, we have to send you somewhere else anyway, and so we're not really trying to pitch those services. We just need to know that folks really should find mentorship. Sometimes, by the way, your local SCORE chapter through the SBA, SCORE, I forget what it stands for, but it's a mentorship group. They're aimed a lot at launch and startup operations, but they probably can refer you to other mentors in the area. So that could also be a place to turn if you're not finding somebody in your community or whatever. But in the meantime, keep throwing it out there on Facebook.
And another plug for Coach. We engaged a coach about 2 years ago. And it was a specific purpose why we had a coach, and part of what you saw us create last year with the podcast, the Buy Here Pay Here Institute, and some of the things that we did last year were in it was directly related to having a coach. And we right now have been putting it out there into some of the groups that we know, the professionals. It's like, hey, we have another step that we
Mhm.
want to take. And so we're looking for a coach
Mhm.
right now.
Sure.
So it's like, how we know all the pieces, but we're not sure about the timing and the things
Sure.
and the this. And so we coach and we have coaches.
And we have our own growth challenges, just like any
Yeah.
Buy Here, Pay Here dealer would. We've got things to figure out for the sake of our
Yeah.
business. So we're living it too. We know, what can happen. And even though,
Yeah.
what we do is different than running Buy Here, Pay Here dealership, we just know that, there are decisions to be made, and those decisions are often best made with help from outside,
Yeah,
somebody who's just
absolutely.
outside the mix, who can kind of add that fresh perspective
Yeah.
from outside.
So, kind of to wrap up, because it looks like we're past our 30 minutes. We try to keep it right around there. Is hopefully we see you at TIADA.
Mhm.
And when you are involved with groups of different dealers, is talk to them, and that mentorship, finding someone that might have a level of business that you wish to be able to achieve, and have the conversations and keep in contact and have that mentor, and make sure that they're not a cheerleader,
Right.
that they're going to say the hard stuff, and ask them, say, I don't want you to say the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want you to just cheer me on. I want to know your real feelings about this, and the value of having a coach. And that kind of, that all really ties very much so into what we started this with, which was working in your business or working on your business. And those really help.
Yeah, we'll plan to open Wednesday with results from our poll.
Yeah,
And kind of
so
circle back to the subject and just kind of wrap up on anything that comes
Buy
out
Here,
of the
Pay
poll.
Your Success. It's
Yeah.
on. So
I couldn't find, by the way, I went out to try to find an old poll. I thought I did a poll on this subject
Yeah, I thought you did too.
more than a year ago, but I couldn't find it. So we
Okay.
just put a fresh one out there. If somebody else finds it, let me know.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, happy Monday. I hope that you all have a fantastic week this week, and we will see you on Wednesday. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.